evening. A lot has happened since we last saw each other. I started and finished my fall quarter for school. I bought more Warhammer books. We lost a couple of Ultramarines off screen. That exists. Don't make eye contact with it. But with all that said and done, we've survived, we've made it here. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, or just Happy Holidays if you don't celebrate Christmas. And I think it's time to just get into it. I am very excited to talk about Flight of the Eisenstein. I've been thinking a lot about it, but I've been thinking about Fulgrim more, which has made me more excited to talk about this book so I can talk about Fulgrim. But yes, Flight of the Eisenstein by James Swallow is on the docket today. I don't have physical books from this point on, so the giraffe will have to suffer in place of book today. Spoiler warning, as always, everything I say is purely my opinion, and I'm still learning. I'm still learning, but I'm being filled with knowledge on Warhammer. Every day I grow more and more smart until eventually everything I know is going to be Warhammer. And in book. It's all book. All I know is book. And as always, I'm critical of everything I read, whether or not I like the novel. So let's just get right into it. So this was my sixth book that I've ever read. I finished it back in May of 2024. And I don't have any funny Snapchat stories to share this time around, mostly because I was so engrossed in reading this novel that I didn't really stop to make any jokes or share my thoughts. I just went, oh my god, this is a good book, I'm going to keep reading it. So jumping right in, the reading experience. Like I said, I loved reading this novel. I really, really miss hard copies. Genuinely, like, studies have shown that you retain more when you read a hard copy, a physical book. So this was genuine torture for me because it is so easy for me to get distracted when I am reading a, like, digital book, and this is where I really start to slow down in my reading, like, a lot. Beyond getting distracted by school, it's just that I just suck at reading digital books, and thankfully it was easier for me to read Flight of the Eisenstein because it wasn't like a monster like Fulgrim was, but I could start to feel it coming on here. And it's just a shame that these books aren't in print anymore. I know logistically it's not gonna happen, but I can't afford an $80 book, okay? I found No Fear for $19 a couple of months back, and I, like, shat myself, because that's the cheapest I've ever seen one of the, like, mid-series books going. So I bought it immediately. And now I have to find Fulgrim in print copy for things I'll talk about next video. But, I think that one's gonna end up costing me a pretty penny. But struggles with actually trying to focus while reading this aside, the actual reading experience itself when I got into the novel was great. Because first of all, James Swallow, thank you for tying up the loose ends from the last book. I think I would have died without you. But physical reading troubles aside, the actual reading experience itself, once I got into the narrative, was great. And that's mostly because James Swallow thankfully took the time to tie up some loose ends. First of all, just knowing that the Remembrancers made it to Garo's ship okay, that was like... because I was going to, like, lose my mind if I got to this book and it turned out they were, like, blown up in the void of space. I would have been so fucking sad. Also, it's nice to see that after reading the end of Isstvan, we actually get to see that, yes, just the entire act of the non-traitorous traitor Marines rebelling against their legions actually gave Garo the time to reach TERRA with the news. Like, listen, every once in a while you can do extended non-instant gratification where it's like, oh, we won't know for several books, but no, my monkey brain wants to know right now if it worked, and it worked, so I'm very happy to see that. Which, all of this is great, because initially going into this, I was kind of scared by the premise. Travel stories can either be really good or they can be very boring, and I am very happy to have found that this wasn't a boring one. Part of that is just because, like, the mission itself was vital, and the tension was great. So, once again, like, if it weren't for those things, I don't know if I would have been as happy to see a travel story. Like, I knew that they weren't going to get killed off just because, not even like me knowing what was going to happen. Typically in stories like this, they're not going to kill off the messengers when it is clear that they need to go somewhere for the plot to continue. But even then, it still carried tension. I knew they were going to make it, and still I was like scared the entire time because I didn't know who was going to make it. So it was just a really good read in that sense alone, and it made the idea of extended travel in literally like 2 compartments in the ship the entire book, well, not the entire book, for like the last half of the book, all the more bearable. Also, side note really quick, it was really cool to see Plague Marines like this early on before the actual Legion of the Death Guard has been changed, partially because it was just cool to see them, and partially because it was really neat and interesting to see how Erebus was right in that all of this has been predetermined. Nurgle already has a plan for the Death Guard, and we are seeing it in action right now in this novel. And then under that, it seems to me that I have left a note. Fuck you, Grulgor. You took Decius from me. My baby boy sobby emoji. I don't know what that's about, but it's there, so it must be important. But yeah, it was just really neat. I thought it was fun to start like hinting at how the legions are already corrupted on the inside before we've even like fully like submitted to corruption. Even though if you've read Fulgrim, you know at this point shit's kind of fucked already. But centering in a bit more, what this book really is it's set up for Garo. And last review, if I remember correctly, I talked about how suddenly introducing Garo and just having him be there and suddenly, oh wow, he's this dude that is like best buddies with Saul Tarbitz, isn't that so convenient? I really wish that we got this POV in the last novel, because this would have set up things a lot better, in my opinion, for Saul knowing Garo, because we got to see more of Garo in this book. He was the main POV, and, you know, I really like him. I think he's a cool dude. He provides that, like, Terran-born perspective that I really wanted to see so far, and it kind of helped me better understand the non-Terran versus the Terran conflict going on, because it's quite literally a cultural clash. We have, him with his, what are they called? His, like, fuck, what are they called? I don't want to say that, that's wrong. His squire. There we are. He's got his little squire, and that's like a whole Terran tradition, and then you see time and time again both Marines directly confronting him about it, and then just like background lore stuff. The barbarous-born Death Guard, how much they differ culture-wise in comparison, and I think it's just really cool, like concept-wise, that there's a clear distinction between the men that came with the Primarch and the men that came before the Primarch. And I think it's equally as cool to see how they treat each other, and in later books, how Primarchs treat the differing classes, I guess you could say. That's the easiest way I can define it. Also, it was, you know, the interactions we got between him and Kurz were just really fun, because I feel like with the way they set it up, those two are kind of like on their own level of outcast, if that makes sense, where they are wholly loyal to the Golden Throne because the TERRA is their home, and so they view this situation in an even different light than the normal loyalists do. And so it was just, every time they were on scene, I was just, like, locked the fuck in, because it was a whole new tragedy for me to get attached to and be very, very upset about later. I should say, their interactions were my second dream come true. My first would have been to see more Saul and Garo interactions, but they took that from me, so I guess I won't. On top of all that, the, like, returning cast, once again, is fantastic. Because of how much we lost in the trilogy, I'm so happy to see what is left behind. I think having the Remembrancers again, and having our one loyalist, Luna Wolf, was just nice. It was like a healing balm to my soul. But despite talking about all of that, I think Garo's men are equally as interesting. I just love all the characters in this. All the characters in this are just wonderful. I just like them. They're just neat. Even when they didn't agree, it really felt like Garo and his men like actually got along and really did treat each other like brothers. And I just really loved all of their interactions. Like earlier I talked about Decius. Decius like was one of my favorite characters. Why did they do this to him? Last video I said don't have a favorite character because they'll just fucking kill him. Why didn't I listen to myself? But overall it was really hard sometimes to read certain characters because it left me with like burning questions of wanting to know if they ever found out like what happened to the friends that they left behind on Isstvan. Like obviously they're probably just gonna figure that they died, but I just want to know if they know the specifics. I want to know if Garo ever finds out the specifics of what happens to Saul, if Mercedes ever finds out the specifics of what happens to Logan. Like, I want to know these things, and if they don't, part of me is going to be, like a little bit disappointed, but the other part of me is going to be really sad, because, like, bro, that would bother me for the rest of my life, if I couldn't find out what happened to some people I really cared about, who definitely died on this planet, trying to make sure that I got away while they warned what's left. Or maybe, who knows, maybe they're gonna be, like, unbelievably hopeful that they somehow survived. I don't know. But I want to see. I just want to see. And I'm not ready for when it happens if it does. And then what was completely unexpected, I don't know why it was so unexpected for me, but was, like, Dorn and that ending. Oh, I have feelings about that ending. First of all, Dorn feels so naked without mutton chops and a mustache. It was legitimately, like, off-putting when I saw this image in the book. I was like, he's naked! He looks so naked! For me, Dorn without mutton chops and a mustache is like Russ and the Lion without beards. They just feel wrong. Why do they look like that? It's I wouldn't describe it as babyface, but it's the best way I can describe it. If Dorn comes back and he doesn't have facial hair, I don't know what I'm gonna do, but I'm gonna be severely disappointed for sure. Funny tidbits about character design put aside. What the fuck? What the fuck? Jailing my girls? You put my girls in jail? You punch Garo? What the fuck? Keep your fucking hands off of my boy, you autistic concrete mixer! I don't know, something about him getting the news about Horse and then immediately just fucking decking Garo made me go, what the fuck, do not kill him, please. He's telling the truth. It makes sense. You don't want to hear that, you, like, essentially what is your best friend, and your brother, is a betrayer and trying to wipe out everything you've worked to build. But damn. Stop punching people and calm down. The twist of being like, oh yeah, now that you've told us all this, you can't leave, was wild. I don't know why I didn't expect it, but I was still like, what are you doing? What are you doing to my remembrancers? Put them down. Also, the fun tidbit about essentially getting to see the Inquisition started up in the Grey Knights, that was cool, I guess. Malcador kind of sounded like Nick Fury, though, assembling the Avengers. I just had to say it. It's all I could think of during that final scene. All that being said, in terms of criticism, it's really hard to follow up that trilogy, I think. It was a really good read. Do not get me wrong. Flight of the Eisenstein is a really good read. But the stakes didn't quite hit the same, which is weird to say, because, you know, this is like, the whole plot is trying to warn TERRA of the civil war that is oncoming, but I think there's just so much tension, like, there was everything about the climax of Galaxy in Flames was just so insane that it's really hard to rebuild all of that again so quickly in one novel, so it didn't feel like an intense climactic journey as much as a transition between plot points, if that makes sense. So I don't know, it didn't hit as hard as I was hoping it would, for me personally. It also probably doesn't help that at this point I wasn't as attached to Garo yet, which definitely plays a part. When you are that attached to the POVs that we see in the first 3 books, because we've spent so much time to them, or with them, it's kind of hard to suddenly switch to a new character we've never seen before, and get that same tension that we have suddenly grown accustomed to. But still, on its own, it's a really good read. It doesn't change the fact that I like this novel, it's just, it doesn't hit as hard. As for the writing, now we really are playing with narrative POV, and I actually love this kind of trope. I really like seeing different characters, like, points of view and interpretation of the same events. That being said, it is at risk of feeling overdone, and it can be overdone, but I think it works here because we're following established characters still, and then we're sprinkling in some new faces, and we have a different POV focus. As for the writing itself, I don't know if all of James Swallow's work is like this, but it kind of read like a drama. I've seen it described as like an action movie, but it really read like a drama to me. And I don't mean like dramatic, like drama TV show. I'm talking like a classical drama I would read in class. And part of this comes out in sort of the conspiratorial subterfuge tone that is underlying pretty much the entire thing, because, you know, Garo is trying to underhand his own superiors to get this word out. But the other part is straight up the dialogue. Like, if you've read any of Shakespeare's contemporaries, not Shakespeare himself, but his contemporaries, you'll kind of see what I mean. The way that they talk in this book is pretty much the same as they do in those plays. It's really, really weird, and I enjoy it. It's not a bad thing. It's really interesting. But it just kind of like stuck out to me. I was like, where am I right now? Why does it read like I'm reading something from the 1500s? Another thing I wasn't expecting was Swallow's depiction of Mortarion. I don't know. I kind of got the impression from everything I heard about him that he'd be kind of a grump and like a bit more whiny, but like weirdly, he's just kind of chill. Like he's a good dad. It was weird. I was not expecting him to like genuinely care about his Marines. But yeah, he does. Like Mortarion W? What the fuck? Obviously he is salty about his dad. The few lines we get from him of him being like, yeah, that's what a good father would do, you just kind of go, ooh, I wonder what that's about. But yeah, it was done in a way that revealed a lot about his character, without seeming annoying. And I actually, before, wasn't as excited to read Mortarion, like, conceptually. But after reading this book, I'm more excited to actually go on and read more of his POV. I have the entire, Godblight series, I think it's called, on my shelf. And I am actually so excited to read that now, just because of the little bit of Mortarion interaction that I got here, and I'm hoping that carries through the whole heresy. Generally, I think I'm finding myself continuously liking traitors way more than I thought I would. Like, I thought I was gonna be really pissed off that they're killing all my boys, but no, I'm sympathizing with both sides, and that it just makes me really happy, because I like it when stories are more dynamic like this. I like that even the bad guys are, like, you understand them. You get where they're coming from, most of the time. And so, I don't know, this is just making me more excited for the heresy. It also, not gonna lie, it makes me wonder how much of the Purge was the Primarch's choice. Like, whoever went down, I want to know who the Primarchs chose and who the first captains chose. Because I don't fucking trust Typhon. He seems like a petty asshole compared to Mortarion. And I will accidentally call him Typhus, I will not lie to you, because he feels like, when I'm in his presence, he's just directly injecting me with Typhus. So, yeah. I don't trust him, and I really want to know if it was him or Mortarion that chose to send Garo to the Isstvan surface. I wouldn't be mad if it were Mortarion, but I also wouldn't be surprised if it was Typhon. I'm not gonna lie to you. Another thing about the writing is that this is when I can, like, it's the first time I can confidently point out something that is Warhammer goofy. And I don't mean, like, the concept of Warhammer being so serious, like overly serious at times, that it can be goofy to read. I mean in the sense that there are scenes where you generally read them and you go, this is the goofiest shit I've ever read. The one that comes to mind is the fist fighting with the bug man on the surface of the moon. Like, in practice, or I'm sorry, on paper, it sounds cool. Fighting a bug demon on the surface of the moon sounds cool, but in practice it just makes me laugh because it seems just so ridiculous. Also, genuinely, the picture did not help this. It looks so dumb. But no, there's no justifying it. It's just goofy, in a way that I love and appreciate. Which is sad, because this is like a sad scene when you think about it outside the context of this image. I think I liked Swallow's writing for this story. I do think that I like the first 3 novels before. I talked about it in my last video, where I think those 3 novels, at least so far from what I've read, they're kind of the peak of the series so far for me. But I think that this was still a fun, interesting novel to read, coming off the heels of Galaxy in Flames. It's just, I don't know, there's not a lot I have to say about it this time around, simply because, those first 3 novels just hit so hard, so it's hard to, like, follow it up with anything. You were doomed to be like, damn, what do I even say after reading that? No matter who you were, no matter what novel came next. Oh, that might be a lie, though. I haven't gotten to some of the novels that people have been talking about, like, oh, don't worry, when you get to this one, that's when you're gonna start going, oh shit, this is actually peak. Oh, and before I talk about criticism, don't worry, I didn't forget about Isstvan. I just put it off till last. I said in the last video that Ben Counter's Isstvan III is like peak. It's the best one. But that isn't to say that the other ones aren't as good. And we get another look at Isstvan III in this novel. We get another peek at Isstvan III in this novel. And though it didn't hit as hard for me in Galaxy in Flames, all that means is I only cried once while reading it, thinking about it, okay? I didn't cry about it multiple times, alright? That's all that means. It's still wonderfully written. And I need GW to stop, please. Stop killing my dreadnoughts. I'm begging you. I can't handle this anymore. I'm going to cry over Huron Fall if I... Oh, no! That scene was so good. And I'm so depressed. That scene was... It was just genuinely so good. And, once again, I hate to say it, but you should definitely read this book just to see, Isstvan III again, and read that specific scene. And you know what? If you're gonna read that specific scene, you might as well just finish it out. Just finish it out. It's cool. Just do it. Just do it. However, I'm saying all that, just do it. Just read it. But, to be honest with you, there is one big problem with saying that, and that is, while I don't mind the rehash of a plot point just to get a different POV, generally, I know that people don't actually really like that. I should say there are quite a few people who do not like that, and that's, like, probably the biggest criticism for the writing of this book, which is not entirely in Jane Swallow's control, but it is a major part of the actual writing, so it's gotta be brought up. Rehashing plot points happens a lot in the Horus Heresy, and see, it's understandable because of how it begins, but it can really cause a lot of problems that are very evident in many of the books in this series. First and foremost, it can make the plot feel stagnant, and not even Galaxy in Flames can escape this. Even though we read a several 100-page novel, at times, because of the rehash, it feels like the overarching narrative hasn't really moved forward at all, and I think the section where we are just kind of like, waiting to leave Isstvan is probably the slowest section of the book because, like, yeah, we get it. We know what happens here. We're seeing it through Garo's eyes, but we are here to see what happens afterwards. So, as cool as it is to see how Garo is interpreting all these events, you can feel a little bit in the back of the brain the hamster wheel that makes the brain go getting antsy because it wants to see what happens next. When I say that I like this to a point, but it can be overdone, it can be overdone if we're rehashing the entire plot. Thankfully, we are not rehashing the entire plot. In this case, the beginning is a flashback for Garo, then there's a central bit where we get a little bit of time in Isstvan III, and then we get the rest of the story. Thank God. But even that much can be too much for some people. So it's important to bring up. And this specific critique actually plays into the, like, larger academic point that I wanted to make, so I'm just going to start talking about that now. Which is basically this. Multiple POVs in a larger series is really hard to write. I personally relate a lot to this because in my own, like, writing project, I'm writing a larger novel series with multiple POVs. So it's really important, and I understand this completely, it's really important to determine how exactly you want to write that out. In this case, it's rehashing because of the way we start the initial storyline, but there are other ways you can do it. You could start earlier in the timeline, you could do smaller flashbacks spread out throughout the whole series, you can have characters refer back to previous events, or you could just operate with an acceptance that there are things that the audience will never see that affect the present story. Now, the Horus Heresy has all of these things implemented, but each point I mean in a sense of, like, this is the major tie-in, I guess you would say. This is the major, like, operating point for that POV narrative. With Warhammer, they're choosing to do, here's our starting point in the middle of the action, and then we will backfill with whatever we need to backfill with. Now, all of these options have their pros and cons, but they rely heavily on how you outline and structure your actual narrative. One of the reasons the Heresy can feel bloated at times is because they had way too much to write about and were forced to deviate from their planned timeline. This is probably for the best, though. As evidenced with Fulgrim, a lot of the story itself just has way too many parts and moving plot points to have been as short as originally predicted. And if you really, really need help visualizing it, think of it this way. The Emperor and the Primarchs alone I would count as major characters for the whole series, which means you need to resolve their plots. Which means you have at least 19 to 20 character arcs to get through. This is not counting all of the other characters like Marines, normal humans, etc., which have actual POVs in the novel, because we're not getting direct POVs of all these characters. Which then means that you need to do character arcs for all of those characters on top of these major characters that are huge parts of the series, like the whole fucking story itself. And then you have to do side stories, you have to do the main plot. It's a lot to cover. When you tackle that much story, POV allocation and time management is essential, and the larger it gets, the more likely your audience is going to become fatigued and a POV or a plot line is going to fall flat. Especially if it's to the point where an audience may, perhaps, think that it wasn't necessary to have that at all, and they could see how you could completely cut it out of the story. This is where the most essential writing tool comes into play. Outlining. It is way better to overestimate your plot rather than to underestimate it. So you really, really want to plot it out first. My own outline for my very first novel is right now 15 pages long, but it's going to grow because I am still filling out the very specific details of what I want to happen in each chapter. It's just good to be detailed with yourself. It's better to over outline and shrink it down while writing than to under outline and suddenly you have to figure out how the hell you're going to grow your story by several chapters and still fit the whole plot into one book. This is a huge problem for Fulgrim. Thankfully, it is not as big of a problem for Flight of the Eisenstein here. But also, you absolutely need to give yourself a limit. Moderation is key. In Warhammer's case, I've heard two different things. The first thing being the original plan was sub 10 books, and then it became just an open-ended amount, which never do an open-ended amount of novels, because that's how you go from saying, oh yeah, we're gonna have maybe at most 10 books to 50 to 60 books. What the fuck happened? And really a big part of that is we keep getting books where their events take place way before the trilogy, or alternatively, we're getting books that are just giving us another POV of the exact same events. And it's causing bloat. It's making the series kind of a sludge to trudge through, sometimes. This academic section ended up as a critique itself, but it was built off of a critique. And it's all just to put in perspective why this series starts to feel like it drags the moment you hop off the trilogy. It is just because there should have been some more solid planning. Like, it should have been more than just, oh, here's a general gist of what we want in these books. It should have been this is what needs to happen in this, like, specific, very structured way. Can you fit that into a book? No? Okay, then we're going to need to do it in this many books. I'm trying not to get worked up about this specific point because it is a point that has been annoying me recently with multiple of the novels I've read, so it's going to keep coming up. I'm so sorry in advance. But I just wanted to address it now because now we're out of the trilogy and heading into the series proper. So it's good to just kind of talk about it, and then you can keep it in your mind when I talk about it later. And now we're at the end of the review. That felt really fast, and I think it's just because, like, once again, this book was kind of a transitionary book for me, so I didn't have a lot to say about it, but I still enjoyed it. I don't know if everyone else kind of felt that way, but I think it's just because we're moving through plot points right now. You know, we're finishing out, this is tying up the, oh shit, the rebellion's happening and we need to tell TERRA, and now we're going into, like, TERRA knows, and shit's about to get fucky. So with all that being said, do I recommend this book? Yes. Specifically, I recommend it for people who've obviously read the trilogy, but more importantly, if you are a Death Guard fan, or a Grey Knight fan, I think it's really important that you read this novel, because if you didn't know, Garo's kind of like the precursor. He's kind of like the first Grey Knight, from what I understand. So it's really important to just kind of give this book a read and see how your chapter started out. And then obviously if you're a Death Guard fan, it's a Death Guard-centric book. So definitely give it a read. But yeah, that was Flight of the Eisenstein. And now that we're at the end of the video, I just gotta say, I'm so sorry it took me 3 months to write this and post it. Like, obviously it's such a, like, short video, so what took me so long? And genuinely, what took me so long is this monstrosity right here. If you've watched all of my videos, you might notice that this pile changes every once in a while, and that is because this is the pile of books that I read every quarter. Note its size. Note its general audacity of existence. And really, the thing is, most of these are graphic novels. They were not the issue. It was these two that were the issue. Note, one of them says James Joyce's Ulysses. So does the other one. I haven't had time to think about anything but Ulysses for the past 10 weeks, and then I needed a break from doing any thinking at all, so I just genuinely couldn't write this video. I couldn't think about this video. I thought about it, but I couldn't think about how to write it. And so, now that I'm done with this, I'm genuinely hoping I can get back onto my normal schedule. I post once a month, because of school. I write so many essays and I read so many books in 10 weeks that I can really only get one video done. But I'm trying. I'm trying so hard. But when you're in the face of this, there's not much you can do. I need you to understand, if you have no fucking clue what this is the hardest book to read in the English language. This is the annotations for the hardest book to read in the English language. None of Ulysses is in this book. It is literally just annotations. Double-columned annotations to give context to this fuck-ass novel. This is longer than the novel. And you want to know the worst part? This is the old version. The 700-page version is the old version. The newest one is 1,300 pages long. That is how hard it is to understand what the fuck is going on in here. And the even worse part is I somehow liked this fucking book, so I don't know what that says about me. Have no fear, everyone. No matter what, I will finish the Horus Heresy, because if I can finish that fuck-ass book, I can finish the fucking Horus Heresy, okay? Nothing is going to stop me now. So until then, I'm hoping that I can finish Above and Beyond before the year is over, or at least before I go back to school. And, I will see you, I'm gonna try and say very soon. Within a month, even. Maybe only 2 to 3 weeks will pass before I post the next video, just because of how long it's been since I've been here. And, I'm very excited to talk about Fulgrim, because there's a lot going on there, and I have so many fucking thoughts. Until next time.